Well. I did not expect the response that I got for my secondary video, but I will take it. You can see the like to dislike ratio on the first compared to the like and dislike ratio on the second. Now, to be fair, when I took these screenshots, it was about a week ago after I finished drafting this video. So the like to dislike ratio on the second video is closer to 70% now, which is fine. Like I said, I wasn't trying to get anybody to just take my beliefs and believe them wholesale. It was more so trying to get people to understand my perspective, as that was my primary objective. Additionally, you guys seem to like the content. If you do, like, subscribe. I think right now I'm hovering around 250 subscribers. Again, really didn't anticipate this sort of growth for legitimately 2 videos. Thank you to everyone that did subscribe. I do appreciate it. Thank you to all the people that gave me constructive criticism. I appreciate that as well. But of course, in order to be as fair as possible, to actually give newer players or maybe players that have been around for about a year and don't really believe in Robin, they don't really believe in Ruan Mei, I figured that I make a video about those two specifically and explained how they've been able to maintain their meta relevance for such an extended period of time. By doing that, I'm also going to explain their greatest strengths from my perspective, along with 2 of their greatest weaknesses. To be fair, I did try to think of a third weakness for both, but I couldn't, which is due to my own bias towards these characters. If you really want one, for the sake of balance, Ruan Mei and Robin's raw damage amping is weaker than Tribby's. I don't view this as being that much of a weakness, that much of a liability, but of course, many players do. I believe that their strengths lie in their utility. I will showcase that utility with some runs at the end of the video. Now, the purpose of this video is to convince you to consider investing in Robin and Ruan Mei in 2025 and beyond. As I said before, this video is primarily for players who are still on the fence about the value of Robin and Ruan Mei, and I'm hoping that this video can give you some insight on the pros and cons that come with using these units. Now, starting off with Ruan Mei, as you guys already know, she has a 25% team-wide res pin buff, which is the highest in the game, 68% team-wide damage buff, which is the highest team-wide, 10% team-wide speed boost, which is unique to her, 50% team-wide break efficiency, and she is the only E0 with this ability, 20% team-wide break effect buff, which is unique to her, increased break delay, which is also unique to her, and 20% defense ignore if you choose to invest in her E1. Her first strength, from my perspective, is the improved team survivability. As I briefly discussed in the tribute video, because she has such a high level of weakness break efficiency along with the break delay, it makes it massively easier to break enemies, and in return, reduces the likelihood of your team sustaining serious damage. This level of protection, when used correctly, can make Ruan Mei feel like a secondary sustain. This dramatically reduces the strain on your sustains while allowing you to recoup resources, deal additional damage, and prevent enemies from setting up devastating offense. This becomes increasingly more relevant over time as enemies do massively more damage as each version passes, making her utility effectively eternal. Additionally, her breaking capabilities becomes increasingly more relevant in Apocalyptic Shadow, since breaking the enemy comes with massive advantages. Now, her first weakness is her uptime issues. One of her most glaring weaknesses has always been maintaining her ult uptime. She has a 2-turn ult duration, but requires 3 turns to get her ult back. Given that this is the primary method of which she's able to buff your allies, this can cause significant damage loss during downtime. Because Ruan Mei is constantly under threat of losing her ult, she effectively has to skill every turn, which makes her SP negative without her light cone. Because of this, she is forced to run an energy regeneration rope, as any other rope type would dramatically affect her uptime. Additionally, it's preferred to run her with Von Whack at 120 speed to action advance her at the beginning so that our buffs go live first, and then let her be slow to decrease the amount of turns that she takes and therefore increases the amount of time between each turn that she has. Of course, the slower that she is, the greater her ult uptime. Even with Ruan Mei's signature, you can consistently end up being 10 to 15 energy short, which makes her reliant on enemy attacks to get some energy back, which is counterintuitive since he's trying to keep them broken. You can run SI5 Memories of the Past, but given that this isn't a farmable light cone and provides a negligible amount of energy, and also doesn't provide much in terms of team utility, this would be considered a last-ditch measure when out of options. Memories is better for reaching Ruan Mei's break effect requirements than providing meaningful energy regeneration. You can use Bronya's Light Cone for the extra ER, but then it becomes harder to hit Ruan Mei's breakpoints. To be clear, uptime isn't a unique issue to her, as nearly every team-wide buffer runs into this issue under specific conditions. Now, her second strength is her versatility in team buffs. She has one of the best damage amps in the game. Is it the best? No, of course not. But it's still one of the best in the game. At E1, with her 20% defense ignore, 25% res pen, 68% damage bonus, that amp outright provides a greater amp than Tribby at E0. Of course, once Tribby gets her E1, Ruan Mei is outclassed. Regardless, due to the variety of her buffs, she can remain relevant in effectively any meta. If a unit is oversaturated in damage percent, she can still provide res pen and defense ignore. Those buffs have become more common in units over the years, but not to the point of oversaturation. However, even if a unit, hypothetically, has a 200% damage bonus on them, the 68% damage bonus would still provide a 1.23 times damage boost. Due to the variety of these buffs, it's effectively impossible for her to be bad at any point in this game's history. Defense ignore and res pen are rarely oversaturated in lower cost setups, and the value becomes even more enormous when paired with a unit like Cipher, who can provide 40% vulnerability and defense shred. Cipher, specifically, wants to be as fast as possible, so there's synergy there as well. The greater the variety of buffs and debuffs on your team, the greater your team's overall damage and performance. Now, one of her lesser mentioned buffs is her 10% speed buff. She is the only unit in the game with this ability, and this buff makes it slightly easier for newer players to build their units starting out, as building a min-maxed speed/damage setup on a DPS can be challenging. As a result, that speed boost can be the difference between your DPS acting twice or 3 times in any given cycle. Additionally, this speed boost has even greater meta relevance if you include Hyacine. Of course, she scales off of speed and HP. Even if your Hyacine doesn't have 200 speed, if you get as close to it as humanly possible and put a messenger set on Hyacine and then run Ruan Mei with her, she can easily cross that 200 speed threshold, even if it's for a limited time. That becomes relevant in casterized teams, since the greater Hyacine's speed, the greater her healing, the faster Casterizer's charge becomes. This bonus can be considered neutral to Cassie, since she wants the team to be hit to get greater charge, which is obviously difficult to guarantee if the enemy keeps getting broken. Her second weakness would be her lack of identity. While Ruan Mei is considered one of the most versatile units in the game, this title becomes less relevant with each passing patch. As discussed in part 2 of my tribute video, being universal is becoming a greater weakness as Hoyo continues to push new teams. This issue compounds given that Super Break, the archetype that Ruan Mei doesn't even support in the most efficient way, keeps falling in and out of relevance when it's not being shilled. As a result, Ruan Mei can be considered a homeless team-wide buffer. She is only a best in slot in Super Break teams and is second or third best everywhere else. While she is the absolute master of break, she is not the master of any given archetype. Her continued meta relevance can be largely contributed to Caster Ice, as she's currently the second best team-wide amplifier in that team. Tribby would be the first, although Evernight is the best memo spread amplifier, which outclasses both Tribby and Ruan Mei in what she provides to the team. Once Cyrene releases, she'll be the third best amplifier in that setup. It is unlikely that Ruan Mei will ever become irrelevant in any given meta, but that doesn't change the fact that she needs an archetype that can continually take advantage of her buffs in a way that allows her to remain top tier, something that Hoyo has not provided to her till this day. Her third strength would be her low skill ceiling, and this is due to her sheer ease of usage and building. All she needs is HP, defense, break effect, 120 speed, a energy regeneration rope, and she's good to go. This makes her extremely easy to build. Additionally, because she's run so slow, rotational issues aren't as devastating as they could be considering her ult duration. While her ult is up, your team is essentially supercharged to the moon. The faster your team and the better your speed tuning, the easier it is to take advantage of the damage windows provided by Ruan Mei. Since there's rarely any variance in her gameplay outside of skilling, ulting, and the occasional basic attack, it is extremely difficult to mess up while using her unless the user of her is simply not paying attention. Additionally, due to the survivability that she grants to your team, she's one of the best team-wide buffers for players starting out since she makes sustaining a breeze. This can be taken advantage of even further in Sustainless comps if a player wants to attempt that as well. Finally, since she can be used with so many different DPS, there aren't a ton of DPS that would dislike having her on the team. And just for people that would like to see my Ruan Mei build, here it is. If you're unfamiliar with some of these icons, I am running her on Watchmaker with Von Whack. And if you want to see my Hyacine build as well, I'm running her on Messenger with the new Great Tree set. With all that out the way, moving on to the Robin section of the video. On to the Robin section of the video. She has 100% action advance for the entire team, which is unique to her and is the largest action advance buff in the game. 50% team-wide damage buff, team-wide attack buff, which has the highest scaling in the game, team-wide 20% crit damage buff, team-wide 25% follow-up crit damage buff, which is unique to her, and she also provides additional damage on every ally attack. If you choose to invest in her E1, you will also get 24% res pen. Now, her first strength is the improved team survivability. Similarly to Ruan Mei, she gives your team a massive boost in survivability. Her 100% action advance is so powerful that it quite literally takes turns away from the enemy, which in turn makes it easier to set up your team-wide buffs while delaying your enemy setup. This level of protection, when used correctly, can make Robin feel like a secondary sustain. When properly timed, your DPS is put in a better position to break the enemy and prevents your team from taking devastating attacks. This becomes increasingly more relevant over time as enemies do massively more damage as each version passes, making her utility, effectively, eternal. Additionally, her action advance is continually relevant in Memory of Chaos and Anomaly Arbitration, since you want to have as low of a cycle clear as humanly possible to guarantee maximum rewards. Robin is the only unit with a buff strong enough that it effectively guarantees a reduction in cycles used to clear, assuming you've built/used her optimally. Her first weakness would be her uptime issues. Just like Ruan Mei, one of Robin's most glaring weaknesses has always been maintaining her ult uptime. Her ult has a fixed duration, and during this time, she cannot act, which means that she cannot skill. Given that this is the primary way team-wide buffers acquire energy, this weakness is notable. She's even more reliant on enemies hitting her to get enough energy to immediately ult once the first one ends, and she's also very reliant on having allies that attack very frequently to build her ult charge. Additionally, she needs to ult as quickly as possible due to action value decay. The later that she ults, the worse off the ult's value becomes. Taking 2 natural Robin turns to activate her ult without a forced action advance from Remember's Trailblazer or Bronya is legitimately not acceptable in most cases. She's effectively forced to run an ER rope, as any other rope type would dramatically affect her uptime. The optimal way to play her is to action advance with Von Whack so that her buffs go live first, and then let her be slow. Although this is not as required with her because she has her own inherent action advance built into her kit. The lack of speed that she usually runs at can be detrimental in some cases, because if she exits her ult and doesn't have enough energy to immediately reactivate it, getting her ult back up can be a chore. Additionally, every one of her turns that pass with her ult down can feel like an eternity. It is obviously preferable that she builds up enough energy while unable to act to immediately ult after her first one ends, or be within 1 skill of another ult charge. Without Robin's signature, her energy regeneration issues can feel even worse, since it grants 15% energy regeneration at max stacks at Super Imposition 1. You can run Bronya's Light Cone to mitigate this issue, as it can provide superior energy regeneration than her Sig, but that is only possible once you get Bronya's Light Cone to Super Imposition 4. And this is the most inconsistent band-aid fix, as most players won't have this Light Cone at SI4. To be clear, this uptime issue isn't unique to her, as nearly every team-wide buffer runs into this issue under specific conditions, but Robin's uptime issue is the worst out of any team-wide buffer and the most detrimental to her overall performance. Her second strength is her strong identity and room for improvement. Unlike Ruan Mei, Robin has one of the strongest identities in the game. She is undoubtedly the best attack buffer in the game while simultaneously being the best follow-up attack buffer in the game. Although her value has decreased in version 3, she becomes increasingly more relevant as more attack scaling DPS is released. Version 3 is a complete outlier in terms of scaling, as most DPS in version 1 and version 2 were attack scalers. Once this HP meta comes to a close, it's extremely likely that attack scalar unit creation will increase come version 4, immediately improving her positioning in the meta. Due to her utility as an attack buffer and the only unit in the game with 100% action advance, this allows her to work well with units she wasn't even designed for, like Acheron, Aglaia, Anaxa, Herta, and even Phynon in some cases. Additionally, because she doesn't have a ton of meta relevant units that perfectly work with her kit, she has a ton of room for improvement. Her only perfect partners right now are Feixiao and Imaginary March 7th, since both are the only DPSs in the game that can take full advantage of all of Robin's buffs while maintaining maximum synergy and attack frequency. Furthermore, the more attack scalers that release that have high attack frequency, the greater their synergy with Robin. The release of DHPT has already opened up new possibilities for her. As mentioned previously in laborious detail, one of Robin's most debilitating weaknesses is her uptime. DHPT resolves part of this issue. Since the dragon summoned by DHPT can attack, this actively helps Robin build more ult energy. The more allies on the field that can attack, the better Robin's ult charge. However, this attack is too infrequent to be considered a fix to her energy issue. What DHPT does extremely well, that most players haven't fully realized yet, is generate skill points. As I mentioned earlier, Robin can't generate skill points while her ult is active. That's why DHPT is needed. If you run him with sufficient speed, his basic attacks will not only generate some energy for Robin, but will also make him an SP battery. Additionally, because Robin provides such massive attack buffs, DHPT's shield will be exceptionally strong when paired with her in a way that no other preservation can replicate, further boosting your team's survivability. So, Robin grants DHPT greater shield potential and greater damage, while DHPT provides improved energy regeneration and SP regeneration to Robin. This is not a perfect fix to Robin's ult issues. However, he will undoubtedly make her more consistent with his release. DHPT is quite literally her best in slot sustain, something that she has long needed because right now, Aventurine is not performing as well as he used to, and Hyacine really wants to be on HP related teams. Her second weakness is her high skill ceiling. One of Robin's greatest weaknesses is the skill required to use her correctly. While she is easy to build, all she needs is high attack, some HP, some defense, some speed, and an energy regeneration rope. It can be very challenging to use her correctly while maintaining her ult uptime, as discussed earlier. This can make her feel genuinely clunky to the inexperienced, especially given that she cannot generate any skill points while in her ult. These things, on top of her having one of the lower damage amps amongst the other team-wide buffers, since attack and damage bonus oversaturate so easily, can easily deter players from pulling her. One of the things that some players don't understand, as I mentioned earlier, is the later her ult is activated in a cycle, the less valuable it is. Her ult will like to be active immediately after your whole team acts, or right at the start of the battle to take advantage of the AV manipulation that Robin provides. Activating the ult late increases the rate of AV decay, which pushes your allies into the next cycle faster and forces Robin's ult exit even further back in the following cycle. Her third strength lies in her versatility and future optimization. As mentioned briefly earlier, using Robin optimally can drastically reduce the amount of cycles / AV it requires to clear. For me, I could zero cycle well before the release of Robin, but the frequency of my zero cycles dramatically increased after her release, despite content getting objectively harder. Even if you don't care about zero cycles, the ability to activate an ult and having your DPS attack up to 4 times in a single cycle is nothing less than diabolical. This is one of the many reasons why Robin has one of the steepest energy costs, is unable to act during her ult, and has some of the weaker raw damage amping abilities in the game. The steep downsides she has were required to balance her kit. With the release of DHPT, those weaknesses are less glaring than before. Most importantly, the ability for Robin to seamlessly alternate between Sustainless and Sustained comps has become solidified with DHPT's release. Granted, zero cycling and Sustainless clears are becoming more of a luxury as time progresses and new modes release like Anomaly Arbitration. I fully acknowledge that. However, that doesn't change the value that Sustainless clears provide, in that it reduces your reliance on elite sustains and in some instances can be more efficient than using a sustain. Although playing Sustainless is, more times than not viable in Anomaly Arbitration, it is viable in certain MOC and Apocalyptic Shadow stages. In those Sustainless scenarios, by providing your team 100% action advance, you can increase the output of your team by 50 to 100% just by allowing them to act more often and providing a second damage amper. In this way, you can shed 2 to 3 cycles off your MOC clear times or get an additional 2 to 300 points on one side of Apocalyptic Shadow. This is where her hidden value lies, something that can't be properly measured by simulations alone. This level of strength and her E1 has allowed my Feixiao to remain at E0S0 to this very day, while still allowing her to zero cycle and get 3600 to 3700 plus point clears in Apocalyptic Shadow. The Sustainless advantage should not be disregarded while playing the game, because doing so will lock you, both mentally and physically, into one formulaic style of play, which is incapable of adapting to the increased difficulty of this game. The only way to maintain that style of play would be to continually pull the meta units in the game, or do high vertical investment in your DPS so they can sleepwalk through content. If you haven't done either, your ability to cope with difficulty spikes decreases, your reliance on new meta units increases, and your likelihood of quitting the game once you run into several walls increases. I'm not implying that everyone should suddenly stop what they're doing and immediately learn how to do sustainless clears. I am not suggesting that everyone pull Robin for this reason. What I'm suggesting to you, the viewer, is to keep an open mind. If you learn and grow to understand the advantages of sustainless clears, it gives you more weapons that you can use to fight increasingly harder endgame. This advantage can be exploited further with the use of units like Ting Yun and Bronya. However, the unit that really broke Robin in sustainless clears is RMC. The Remembrance Trailblazer can allow Robin to act relatively early after her first skill, which not only guarantees Robin's ult, but stacks true damage on every tick of additional damage from Robin. This buff also remains on Robin for an exceedingly long time, as the buff counter doesn't start counting down until her ult goes down. Add in the fact that Mem attacking boosts Robin's energy charge, the crit damage that RMC provides, on top of RMC's delay with his technique, and the additional action advances that RMC can provide within Robin's ultimate, makes this one of the most accessible and easily abused shells in the entire game. RMC also has perfect synergy with Feixiao and Acheron, as he boosts all of their damage by a significant amount, allowing them to abuse 36% true damage with no drawbacks and provides additional stacks to them as well. Now that DHPT is out, Robin no longer needs to rely on Hyacine, and Hyacine can be with Evernight or Castorus. If an enemy can be challenged more efficiently with Sustainless, she's prepared for that. If Sustainless doesn't work, now she can do exceedingly well in Sustain comms. This is something that really must be experienced firsthand to understand. So, I will show you guys a nearly 3800 Apocalyptic Shadow Sustainless clear with Feixiao, Cipher, and RMC. Then I will show you guys a Sustainless comp with Ruan Mei that involves Acheron, Cipher, and RMC. Then we'll also go over a Sustain clear with Saber, Robin, Sunday, and DHPT. And this is just going to be some builds that I'm putting up on the screen. This is my build for Acheron. She's on Dead Waters with Izumo. Cipher on Dead Waters with Duran. Feixiao, E0S0, doesn't need 100% crit rate. Running her on the Duke set with Duran. Running Robin, of course, E1S1 with the boxing set along with Von Weck. And then I'm running Messenger and Sacrados with RMC just to get as much speed as humanly possible. And I'm running him on Von Weck as well. Now, something that I do want to be clear about, just so that you guys are aware, according to a specific relic score, my Feixiao and my Acheron are essentially top 5% globally. I don't know how accurate that actually is, but I thought that I would bring it up so that you guys understand that this is something that I spent a lot of time investing into. These characters are very important to me, so I have invested much more resources and much more time into them than most players have in the game. Over a year's worth of investment, essentially. So if you can't replicate this stuff that I'm showing you, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I will show you guys the runs shortly. Oh, and before I forget, here is my Saber build, and here is my Sunday build. I'll also add my DHPT build on there as well. Very experimental DHPT build, by the way. Not saying for you guys to copy it, but I was just trying to make him as fast as humanly possible. Just keep that in mind. Moving on to the gameplay now. Alright, welcome to the first gameplay showcase. we're going to be going over what I did in Node 1 for the most recent Apocalyptic Shadow. Sustainless clear. I haven't looked at the gameplay, so I'm just going to roughly go over what I remember and try to explain it from there. But I do want to be very clear. It took me an absurdly long time to get to a point where I could have numbers like this. I know that I'm a free to play. Do not compare yourself to me. Even with these numbers, I still have not mastered this game. There is still room for me to improve. So I'm not a perfect player, never claimed to be a perfect player, and even some of the things that you will see in the video are not perfectly optimized. So as long as you understand all that, watch this with the open mind, we should be good to go. All right, we're finally at the video. The crux of this strategy is pretty simple. We're basically going to abuse the mechanics in order to delete Cocolia without ever needing to touch Japard. This is not a strategy that I came up with. This is something that has been known by Feixiao mains for a while, but I do want to showcase it because it is relevant. When you are fighting Cocolia normally with a sustain, for me specifically, it's too slow because Cocolia ends up attacking you too often. And one of the things that Robin does when paired with RMC, it prevents Cocolia from popping off at all. She might be able to summon her statues or pillars, whatever they are, at the beginning of the battle. But after that, she doesn't really get a chance to do much of anything. So I'm going to showcase that to you guys. One of the things that I heard that I was arguing with some people in another content creators chat, they were saying that Feixiao essentially needs to have 100% crit rate. I'm going to show you why that's wrong. I don't know why people are under that impression. If you have 85% crit rate along with the SI5 Herder Store Light Cone cruising, you do not need that much crit rate at all. So when you're watching, keep track of how many times I actually miss a crit. I can assure you, it's not very often. So we start off, get ourselves a Cipher follow-up. We'll actually full screen this. Now, right here, you actually don't need a skill. So this is something that I keep forgetting because I'm so used to just via muscle memory to immediately activate Robin's skill at the start of battle. You literally don't have to do this. You can basic attack with Robin and then later on use RMC, advance Robin, and then skill just to make sure that you have 3 turns of her skill active instead of it immediately ticking down to 2. This is what I was talking about in terms of not being completely perfect in terms of my optimization. But it won't matter because you'll see the results at the end. So unfortunately for us, we can't actually prevent her from summoning these, but it's fine because what we're going to do is we're going to target this one here. The only thing that we need is wind and quantum weakness. Once we have that, we can focus on her and get her bar broken almost immediately, essentially. She gets off an attack, gets off a second attack. Again, if you use a sustain in this scenario, by the time that my Feixiao normally would act, without RMC, she attacks me essentially, or at least both of them attack me at least 8 times. Right now, I'm only going to get attacked 3 times, and then I'm going to break her. Something to consider. So we advance Robin. Just do a basic attack. We're going to focus on this pillar, as I said. Hit a skill. Then we immediately ult with Robin. Use the ult on RMC. We're basically just trying to lower that pillar as low as humanly possible. That's the only thing that we're focusing on. Get a little skill off. And there it is. Now we can do whatever we want to do. And if you'll notice, all this nonsense that we've been doing, you might have been paying attention to the flashing lights. While you were paying attention to that, my Feixiao stacks have been slowly creeping up. Because Cipher and Mem, along with RMC, all of them are building up her stacks faster than usual. So now we're going to skill and immediately ult. Check the damage. 195. Then we're going to follow up again. We waste no stacks. Just like that. Look how easy that was. A minute. In 1 minute, we broke her. Didn't need to touch the part. Wasn't necessary. Now let's check the damage. And of course, because it went up to 100%, we get that action advance. We get that juicy 36% true damage on every single one of Feixiao's attacks from here on out, on top of the damage that's being ticked by Robin. Look at that bar. Melting. 1 million damage. E0, S0. Do it again. They don't believe Feixiao. Do it again. Another million damage. Where's the missed crits? I thought you need to have 100% crit rate. I challenge that and say you only need 85%, and people think that I'm lying. Why? When I tell you something, if I tell you that I'm able to do something, I have the receipts. I have the Carfax. That's 2 million damage done in 30 seconds or less. Come on, man. Like I said, we don't care about anything else. We're just going to focus her down. You get your attack off, that's fine. All that's doing is boosting my attack. So you'll see right here, attack boost. That is coming from the Streetwise boxing set. Every single time that she gets hit, well, the attack for her goes up, which means the attack of my entire team goes up. Don't hit my Robin, maybe. We're just going to do a basic here. We don't have any skill points, obviously. And there she goes. Now, this second phase is also pretty simple, because the only thing that we're going to be focusing is the wind pillar and the quantum pillar, because all we need are those two weaknesses. Nothing else matters. So we're going to focus on this one. Then we're going to focus on this one. Once we get those down, now my Cipher will be able to use her skills on Cocolia and lower her toughness. And also, of course, my Feixiao will be able to do the same thing. So we're doing this to lower the health of the pillars. That's the reason why we held on to the second ult that we had for RMC, is so that we can just slowly tick away these pillars' health. We're just going to get rid of the wind one first, and then we're going to get rid of the quantum one second. There you go. We'll take some damage here, that's fine. Now you would think that we would die, but my Robin is tough. Now, again, one of the things that people will think is, oh, it probably took you a ton of runs in order to figure this out. No. This is repeatable. I figured this out in less than 10 attempts, because this isn't a strategy that I just came up with. This is something that has been around for a while. So, in some scenarios, your Robin will be lowered by a lot. Sometimes your Mim will be lowered. Sometimes your Feixiao will be lowered. I can tell you what, at no point during this entire run have I ever needed to rely on Cassie's global passive. So it doesn't matter if you have Caster Ice or not. This is still very much doable as long as you execute the strategy correctly and you have your characters built correctly. This is not that hard. I promise. 10 attempts or less. I repeated this 3 times to make sure that it's not a fluke. So when I show you my 0 cycle clears, when I show you these clears, they're repeatable. They have to be repeatable because I optimize them as I go on. I didn't bother fully optimizing this one specifically because I was only doing it as a showcase for here while I'm walking through it. If I was going to make a separate video about it, I would optimize this further. So I know that this seems improbable to do, but it's really not. I can assure you of that. You're just going to target that. Going to skill. Now look at the action bar. We're about to die. But because we have 100% action advance, guess what? Doesn't happen. Goodbye, Cocolia. Go back to the bottom where you belong. You can't beat that. SI5DDD can't beat that. When you're about to die and your whole team gets action advanced by 100%, and that's the difference between living and dying, that's when you start to understand the value of Robin. This here is a very clear visualization of that. So unfortunately, still not broken, but that's fine. Now we're good to go. So we're just going to basic. See, now our follow-ups are doing toughness damage, and we have max stacks. So now we can just go ahead and ult here, and we're going to trick it down. Trick it down. Trickle it down. We've triggered another action advance, meaning we get to refresh our true damage on the Feixiao. Now you may be thinking, what are we going to do about the remainder of the toughness bar? Well, we still have Cipher here. And just like that, she's broken. 1.1 million damage. And the reason why it does that much damage is because of all the damage that I've showcased thus far. And on top of that, well, the true damage doesn't care about what state she's in. It doesn't care that she has damage reduction. True damage is one of the purest damage buffs in the game. Now, one of the things that I've heard, and this is a common argument, is that you don't use Cipher with RMC because Cipher doesn't record true damage. That's accurate. However, just because she doesn't record true damage doesn't mean that she isn't valuable with RMC. You're going to see this run plus another run where I use Cipher with RMC and it still works. You can go on my channel and see the exact same thing. It works because she provides vulnerability. And of course, the more damage that your teammates are able to do, the more valuable true damage becomes. You reduce their defense, make them vulnerable. It just makes the true damage stack up more because your allies do more damage. The more damage that your allies do because they're debuffed and because of their buffs, the more true damage can be recorded. And this is game over. This is lights out. Check the damage. 1.1 million. GG. 1.8. 4 minutes. That's all it took. Now that we're done with that, let's move on to the next run. All right, now we're on to the next showcase, which is going to be with Acheron, RMC, Cipher, and Ruan Mei. Now, the thing that's funny is I actually had a true super break clear with this exact same team. The difference was that I had swapped out Cipher and I put in Fugue, but I didn't 3-star it. However, it was safer than this run. Additionally, the run that I'm going to show you is quite literally the least optimized version of the run, and it still resulted in a 3-star clear. So, if for some reason you guys are interested in seeing the true super break clear of this team, I can upload that, but you guys have to show me that you want to see it. Like, subscribe. We get enough likes, get enough subscribers off of this. I have no problem uploading that just so you can see something that's more interesting than what I'm about to show you. This is more efficient. However, the run that I'm not going to be showing you, that one is safer than this one. So, with that out the way, let's jump right into the video. All right, so the crux of this strategy essentially is to break the dinosaurs, then break the bosses, then break them again, and that's it. That should be effectively the battle summed up into 3 points. I know that's overly simplistic. I'm going to explain some details further, but you need to have a simplistic view when you're going to challenge something like this. You need to have an objective. What do I want to happen, and what do I not want to happen? What I want to happen is I want to be able to break these enemies and kill them before they get up, and I want to avoid damage as much as humanly possible. Keep that in mind while we're watching the run. We get that Cipher follow-up. Get our skill. We're going to basic. Now, normally, I would ult immediately with Ruan Mei. The reason why I don't is because one of the issues that I have in this run is maintaining Ruan Mei's uptime. That's something that we talked about earlier in the video. So, because I don't really need that damage boost right now because their toughness bars are still fully up, I'm going to delay it until her next turn when I'm going to be doing the majority of my damage so that I still have her ult when we go into the next phase of the fight. Now, one of the things that I had to pay attention to was how many stacks of Crimson Knot was on each dinosaur. In this scenario, the dinosaur on the right has the most on top of their head, so I have to target the dinosaur on the left because my ultimate, when it gets fired off, is going to automatically target the one on the right because it has the most stacks on it already. So we have to lower down the one on the left so that once the ult cracks the one on the right, it'll simultaneously crack the dinosaur on the left. That is very relevant because I don't want to leave one of them to remain unbroken and therefore give them an opportunity to hit me. Now it's going to go by kind of quickly, but you'll see that the dinosaur on the right has the most amount of Crimson Knot on his head, so that's the reason why we target the one on the left. I just got the action advance, the true damage, that full 36%, and just like that, look how quick that was. I mean, broken completely. They're defenseless. I haven't taken a single ounce of damage. That was basically 30 seconds flat. Now I can just go off on them, not have to worry about taking a lot of damage, and then we'll be able to go into the next phase. Just do an ult here. Technically, I didn't have to do that, but I'm going to be getting his ult back up anyway, so I just wanted to get that out the way in order for him to build energy up again. Generally, you hold the ultimate for when you actually want the action advance, so you don't have to deal with it going off randomly when you don't want it to. But in this scenario, we're not trying to be as optimal as humanly possible. If anything, I'm trying to prove with this run that you don't even need to be fully optimal in a Sustainless clear at the highest level to get that 3-star clear. This is going to be the worst case. Now we're going to ult, because we're going to be doing the majority of our damage right now. Just working towards getting that action advance back. We have our ult. Check the damage. $961K. You go right back down. You're not getting back up. You're done. You're not getting back up for the remainder of this battle. Gonna hit a skill here. You're out. And now we're gonna skill here. You're gone. We're gonna get our Acheron to get an action advance. And that's the reason why you hold the ult, so that you don't have to deal with stuff like that. But like I said, it doesn't matter. We're still gonna 3-star clear it. But it's important to point out the errors so that you know where you messed up. And if I were to do it again, I know how to further optimize it in the future. Now, in this scenario, I'm going to be ulting with Cipher. And the reason being is if I don't ult with Cipher right here, it's very difficult to get them to go into their next phase without this ult. I couldn't get enough damage going to kill them before they go into their next phase, while simultaneously holding on to an Acheron ult once they go into that next phase. I need to have Acheron's ult active once things switch, so that I can immediately start breaking them again and prevent myself from taking too much damage. And the only way that I could get them to switch phases without taking so much action value was to use Acheron's ult, which is something I didn't want to do. So my trade-off is I activate Cipher's ultimate, I'll get that back later, and I'll still be able to get it in time to finish these guys off. So we do some good damage there, already at 15%, and we're still in the 0 cycle. And remember, that Ruan Mei uptime, what are we off by? 5 energy? I have the signature. Don't have enough. And that's because I'm breaking them. They're not really touching me. So therefore, Ruan Mei doesn't have a way of getting that energy back more efficiently. She basically has to rely purely on skilling. And if she doesn't skill every turn, remember I basicked a little while ago, I don't have the ult up. It's not that big of a deal right now, but it is something to acknowledge. At the very least, we still have our true damage up. We're going to basic. Now we have our ult back. And we're not going to need an ultimate again. So we're just going to go off, reserve our skill points, and now we're on to the next phase. Again, we have to have as many stacks on Acheron as humanly possible when going into this phase, or we're not going to be able to break them before they kill us, essentially. If we can't break them before they kill us, then what is even the point of the run? So now that we have max stacks, we overcap a little bit, we're going to unleash this ultimate. Check the damage, 1.1 million. Unfortunately, we kind of have to hold this. Now, this is what makes this the worst case. What would be preferable for me is if Mim were to be targeted. Even better if Ruan Mei gets targeted, because I don't care about Ruan Mei getting actions. They targeted my Cipher when I was in the process of getting her energy back so she could fire off another ult. If it were not for that, I would have cleared with way more AV than what you're going to see. But because They targeted my Cipher. Shit happens. All Sustainless runs are not perfect. So now I'm like, oh, do I want to restart? Is this worth my time? And I decide to play it out. Not ideal, but it is what it is. The skill here. Now, luckily for me, I saved my ult this time. Because remember, usually you want to hold onto the ult so that you get the action advance when you need it. Because I held onto it this time, I have it prepared. I'm going to action advance my Acheron so she can at least break some of these enemies so that I don't die. We're on our last leg. But it's okay. We get it right before we're about to die. Look at our Acheron, 210. And because we skilled with Cipher, that's a debuff. Once she ults, that's another debuff. We have just enough to fire off one last ultimate with Acheron and get that clear. Just like that. 1.1 million. That's how it goes. Even in the worst case scenario. Even with an E0 S1 Acheron. Even while using the free E6. It still works. People keep trying to say you can't use Cipher with RMC, or at least you shouldn't. I've been doing it since Cipher's release, and that was 5 months ago. And it's been working mighty fine for me. Moving on to the next run. All right. So I'm doing something a bit different. I'm actually going to do a live run. So I'm basically going to be explaining what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I know it's going to sound like a lie, but I just came up with this idea. At first, I was just going to record a run because I hadn't done it yet, and then record me talking over it. But I was like, why do that when I can just do it all at once? Why not, right? So, yeah, let's jump right into it. I'm going to see if I can turn the music off so I can at very least focus without having to jam out internally. And hopefully this doesn't lag too much. My computer is definitely on its last legs for sure. Now, of course, you see this right here? This is quite literally Anti-Saber. And I wanted to try this run for a while in order to get the 3-star clear. Because before I did it with Bailu, and I 2-starred it. But one of the things that made me really petty about this run is one comment on my tribute video that said I should have put my money where my mouth is. And I should have 3-starred this night with Robin. While using an E0 S0 Saber and a Bailu, by the way. Because I didn't 3-star clear it, I didn't put my money where my mouth is. Sure, buddy. Whatever you say. Alright, let's see if we can do this live. Go ahead and basic. Got our ult up. Going to skill here. It's a bit early, but it's fine. Gonna ult. $8.89. Pretty good. Gonna follow up the dragon. I'm actually going to start focusing this one. We're just vibing out. Letting them do all this bullshit. We are completely safe. That is fine. We are going to skill here. Skill again. Wait until we get that action advance so that we don't waste it by activating Sunday's ult too early. We're going to skill. Then we're going to do this. And we save the ult with the HPT until after she gets her energy back up. Because I basically want to start building up her core resonance immediately. You guys can perish. Get out. Gonna ult here. Going to skill. Things are looking pretty good. Get ourselves an action advance. Going to ult. That's perfectly fine. On your last leg. We are going to basic here. Get out. Now, I would prefer not to do things this way. But it should be fine. Yeah, it doesn't action advance her forward, so it's all good. Of course, I want to get some dragons in there. Although doing it this way is rather dangerous. $6.48. Still in the 0 cycle. We're going to actually basic. Because we want to get our Robin ult back up. And that, yeah, that should be it. So now we can ult. Skill again. I actually want this man to go out right now. So we're going to do this. Going to ult with DHPT. Because once we kill him, like, we're going to get our energy back anyway. And this should be a immediate phase switch. There we go. In this scenario, we're going to select Sunday and DHPT to essentially to be sacrifices. They don't have to fall. It's not going to happen. We're not really worried about it. But if something were to go wrong, we at least have Saber to bail them out. You know, we don't have to worry about our freaking. Oh, it does end up happening because I cooked a little bit too hard, but it's perfectly fine. So this is a combo. Actually, I actually have never been in an instance like this, so this is new for me. But I am always in a scenario where I have this enhanced basic. So here's the thing that's funny. If you do an enhanced basic with Saber, then ult, you can do another enhanced basic attack. So we're going to do an enhanced basic attack. We're going to ult. Boom. And then we get to do it again. And then we just get our teammates back. So who cares, right? Now, how do we want to do this? We can just basic. That's fine, right? Only because I don't want to trigger the action advance again, right? Now we can start ulting. Is this death? Well, only one way to find out. No, not quite. Not that it matters very much. This is 100% game over. There's nothing he can do about it. I don't really have a lot that I have to do here. I can just basic. Get your enhanced basic attack off. And there you go. I usually don't do stuff live because I end up not explaining it as well as I would like. But that's just to prove that even when coming across scenarios where you're not familiar with it, as long as you remember your strategies that you had before, it's not that bad. Not that big of a deal. Definitely really, really like this team. I'm going to continue investing in Saber, investing in DHPT. I really want that damn Saber light cone. But that's the end of the third run. It's a bit different. Decided to do it live. Let me know if you guys want me to do more stuff like that. All right, after all of that work out the way, we are finally done. Now, there are two videos that I have upcoming that I basically am in between a rock and a hard place. But I'm going to allow you guys to determine what I make next. So, two of my subscribers, and they aren't the only ones, have basically came to me and said that they've been getting sustain checked rather hard. And I would like to make a video for free to plays, for low spenders, and one of the first videos in that, what I hope to be a long running series, is going to be about sustains. So the first video will be about that specifically. The second video would be about Cyrene, a breakdown of the entire kit, just like how I did Tribby. This seems like a stupid question, because I already know what you guys are going to pick. But I'm going to allow you guys to choose anyway, just so that I make sure that I'm not crazy. You can either get the red pill, or sorry, I guess in this scenario, the blue pill, which is I talk about the sustains, we start the long running series, which will, the first episode will be about 30 minutes long. Or you take the red pill, and you have to witness me break down Cyrene's kit while also tackling some of the craziest takes, the craziest narratives. And that video will 1,000,000% be an hour plus or longer. That video, if I make it, well, it's not even if I make it, when I make it, is going to take me 2 weeks to complete. So I'm going to put a community post up on my channel, and you guys have the choice. Blue pill, free to play guide, free to play series, or red pill. A Cyrene video on the same level of the tribute video that I made. Again, I already know which one you guys are going to pick. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to give you guys a choice. Just want to make sure that I'm not crazy. So, now that we got all this out the way, if you have any questions about anything that I talked about in this video, as always, feel free to comment that. If you have any criticisms, any valid, heavy emphasis, valid criticism, you can drop that as well. But that's all for me. Your boy Scrub Hero R's is out.
Hidden my strength aside, my grief and sorrow. Keeping the light on in the dark place was a pain. Been trying to be the best, it's been a war within. Losing, but I felt like I was born to win. I was born to win, I was born to be great. The sun may never shine upon the hero.